Her first #1 song is a song that a decent chunk, if it's not a majority, but a decent chunk of her fan base will not listen to nor support. This is not a sustainable business model. No. Neo? Oh, sorry. I thought y'all said you wanted men to perform. But you don't have to turn into an acrobat. You don't. Unpopular opinion, keep the enunciation, but drop the Glinda voice. Like, get rid of it. Half of these people be shower singers. You can't sing that? Anyways. Hey guys, it's your girl Cameron and I am back at it again with another video. But we are going to be reacting to your unpopular music opinions. So if you keep tabs on me, if you keep an eye out for my post, on my community tab about a week and a half ago, I asked you guys your unfiltered, unpopular music opinions and I got over 400 plus comments.
Here's me gagging.
400, y'all are real for that. There were so many to unpack and go through. So I'm going to react to some of them on camera for you guys today. We're gonna go through multiple categories: pop, R&B, rap, music trends, miscellaneous, etc. I did read every single opinion on the community tab, because y'all know I be in them comments, whether it's of detriment to my mental health or not. So I was in that thing. So just know that there were a few components on how I chose which opinions to cover today. So A, unpopular. Some of them might teeter along a line, but at least visceral, unpopular, or split. B, I already had future plans to talk about some of the things you guys mentioned. You guys are mind readers, so stay tuned for that. C, I've discussed some of these in unpopular opinion videos before, or I did whole video essays. And D, if it's just rage bait, sometimes you know that people are just trying to elicit a strong reaction and they don't even believe what they're saying either, because it's just simply too ridiculous. But you guys actually requested this. I had several of you guys say, can we get another one? Can we get another one? So I'm giving the people what they want. Get cozy. You guys know these are a good time. Kick your feet up, get a snack, get something to drink. I have my little energy drink here. It is early in the morning. It is early in the morning. Just know that. And get ready to comment down below. What is the craziest opinion here today? Or what is one that you surprisingly agree with? We will break it all down. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hit that subscribe button down below. It is free 99 and you get great consistent content. And without further ado, let's just get right into the video. Let's go. We are going to start with our unpopular pop opinions. And we're going to start with a heavy hitter. I have not talked about this at all. Someone said, about the pseudo Tate McRae, Morgan Wallen drama, people need to realize that social media is not the real world. I saw so many people claiming she had ruined her career with this move because in the corner of the internet, this collab was an unforgivable sin. But outside of this bubble, the general public doesn't care that much about being woke when they listen to music. They just want to play stuff that sounds good to them. Wallen is super successful because a lot of people seem to enjoy his music. As much as you want to deny it, half of the US is conservative and doesn't care about progressives, cancellations, and boycotts. And in the end, the song just went #1 and Tate reached a new demographic. She'll be fine. And another person just kind of co-signed that, saying that it's overblown and a lot of people hating on her are fans of other artists who also have problematic pasts. Oh. So, I'm gonna give you this. I do agree with you that more than half of the US population is very conservative and we underestimate that. Just look at the past election. That's all I'm gonna say. Not a surprise. So I'm gonna give you that. Is it surprising that she did this collaboration? No, the sky is blue. What's new? Do I think it will ruin her career? No, I agree with you. Is it disappointing for someone who was pulling for her? Yes. Me as an individual consumer, yeah. But it's not about me. Do not pander to portions of your fan base who have, yes, lifted your career from the depths and then drop a Morgan Wallen collab. For some of you guys who may not know, some years ago, he was on camera saying the N-word with the hard R.
In the 9 days following the release of the video, downloads of Wallen's album skyrocketed by 500%.
And then recently, he went on SNL and stormed off the set and then got on a plane and said, "Take me back to God's country."
And then came out with merch.
Look, I know a conservative when I see one. That's all I'm going to say. And he hasn't been very open about his political affiliation. But I would not be surprised if he sways a certain way and his fan base certainly does. And not expect people to side-eye you. As for Tate McRae, she's completely ignored questions and answering to these comments. And to be honest, from a PR perspective, I understand why. But it does make you look shifty. Too many of these girls want to be cultural icons, align themselves with their LGBTQ plus fans, and champion for POC. And credit these very fans for their success, their swag, their sound influences, their style. But then they veer off and align themselves with controversial artists who isolate your very fans, especially in this very tumultuous time, okay? And maybe I'm underestimating how conservative her fan base may be. Like, there's two different segments, but I don't know. When Tate comes out and says that her gay fans are her favorite and her whole team is LGBTQ and that's the only opinion she really wants, when releasing music, nobody told her to say that. Nobody told her to say that. She didn't have to say it, but she chose to. So you can't tell me that her team and her did not know that it was going to be a risk. But clearly it was a risk that they were willing to take. Boom. And it worked out for her. But at what cost? Someone said it's kind of embarrassing that this is your number one. You could say get a number one how you get it. Like, if this is how she gets her number one, it's a number one. But someone made a great point that most of the pop girls' number ones, the ones that go on to really meet the next echelon, they were cultural moments and signifying moments in their career, making a direct impact on their audience. Think of Ariana Grande with Thank You Next, Taylor Swift with We Are Never Getting Back Together, Katy Perry, I Kissed a Girl, Lady Gaga, Just Dance, Rihanna, SOS, and Kesha, TikTok. Her first number one song is a song that a decent chunk, if it's not a majority, but a decent chunk of her fan base will not listen to nor support. Plus, the song is kind of boring. Like, you did all of that for a song that's just kind of, it's there. It's still successful in large part to Morgan Wallen's cult fan base. He is doing great in the charts. So, like, I'm not delusional. I'm not in denial about that. But you're not going to convince me that a yee-haw audience are going to be the people filling her stadiums in 5 years, unless if she takes a complete 360. Sure, everyone needs to expand and cross-collaborate to expose themselves to new audiences. That's the music business, boom. But just understand that consequences may come with that, and you may isolate parts of your fan base, the very fan base that have lifted you up to where you are, fighting for their lives in the comments, especially when your spot has already been shaky. So this next opinion says, I am tired of Sabrina's over-sexualized image. Everything she does has to be overtly sexual and quirky and purposefully unfunny. It's getting boring and redundant. I can see she's running out of ideas too. This is not entirely unpopular. I think it's just very split. I think as a pop star, especially in 2025, but kind of throughout history, it's important to find your gimmick or signature. Whether folks like it or not, I think she's found it with these innuendos in a cheeky and funny way. And also her lyrical content is kind of unserious. It's kind of on the nose, but in a playful way, so it works. I really think that the way she incorporates it makes sense with her brand. And honestly, if it doesn't resonate with you, you might just not be in that. I'm not saying that you don't have a right to like dislike it, okay? Because I hate when people say, you just don't get it then. Like, no. But you might not just be her target, right? Like, I just think that there's other pop stars who aren't doing that you could definitely find who aren't giving that. But especially with the whole Juno positions that she did on tour, it gives audience something to tune into every night. You're looking, right? It's searchable, it's memeable, and it's trending. And I know a lot of parents were taken aback by and upset with what they saw at these concerts. But I really don't think that they were paying attention to what their kids were really listening to, because in the very same song, she literally says, I'm so horny, verbatim. There's no gray areas to that. So I can see how someone with no backstory or knowledge of how she gets down could find it confusing or off-putting. But there was one where she did an Eiffel Tower, and I was a bit like, all right, she's getting very creative and she adds this humor and cheekiness to it that feels burlesque-ish almost. So to me, it's all in good fun. And her features, I get it, to make her appear a bit younger than she really is. The pink and pastel outfits, she's a lot shorter, the haircut. So she does appear younger than she is. But when you really unlift the veil, I don't find it extremely off-putting, and it actually makes a lot of sense with her brand. This opinion says, the average person doesn't listen to albums And the Grammy drama was proof. Cowboy Carter was an objectively better record than Hit Me Hard and Soft. It was sonically diverse, great vocals, deeper themes related to racism in Southern culture, etc. But the trending songs on TikTok for Beyonce weren't as good as Billy's, so people assume the latter released a better record. I agree with this 1000%.
16 carriages driving away.
I think also the timing of Beyonce winning her Album of the Year award after Jay-Z spoke up the year prior about her never getting the reward, people assumed it was kind of a pity award. So it like didn't help her case, I guess. But to me, that was nor here nor there because the album was very well crafted and it was Grammy material and it was Album of the Year material. Wasn't the first time that her album was, but this one very specifically. And also, we have to just accept it. There are a lot of people who underestimate Beyonce and will never give her the credit or the flowers that she does deserve, right? So I'm not surprised that people crashed out over Cowboy Carter specifically winning. It thematically told a story much bigger than the music itself, and I think that's important when crafting an album. The sequencing, the references, the music history,
Southern
culture, and its African American roots. So I think this was so much more of a cultural symbol than many of the other albums that she was going against, and Beyonce pushed her own artistic limits with some really, really great songs on here. Did I enjoy Renaissance more and I found it more pleasing to my ears and my taste? Absolutely. But as an album, Cowboy Carter was exceptionally crafted. Someone mentioned in another unpopular opinion in the comments on how Hit Me Hard and Soft didn't really deviate much from Billy's usual formula. They feel like her sound isn't evolving as much as it could. It's one thing to just say like you liked one album better, that's fine. But if you didn't listen to Cowboy Carter, then I don't know what to tell you. I really don't. Because if you don't really care about the historical context, if you don't care what she was trying to say. So this next opinion says, I think if Black dance-oriented artists, example Chloe, Tyla, and Normani actually liked making pop music, they could dominate that genre and bring something new. But I can tell they really don't care for commercial pop. Specifically with the 3 examples you used. Despite Chloe having some of the strongest vocals that I think are arguably needed for R&B, I honestly think her dance music is better, that dance style. In an interview, she said that she was going to start making happier, more upbeat music. And also remember in Chloe and Halle, they were really in their alternative bag. So I don't think that she's particularly scared to do that. She has tried, some of it has stuck. Some of it has not. For Tyla, I think that she gets it from both sides. With her Amapiano style and sound, although it's not like pure Amapiano, you have enthusiasts who are excited that she's bringing this cultural sound to her music and making it pop and making it mainstream and don't want it to be watered down. While you have other comments like yours who really want her to dig into more commercial pop. Now, while I do think that Tyla should experiment with some different production, just a little bit, or meld it, mix it, I do think that she should stick or keep those elements that make her unique, because then she's just gonna sound like everybody else. For Normani, I'm on the opposite side. I actually like her darker R&B vibe more, which can kind of sometimes cross into that pop R&B space depending on how you define it. Unpopular opinion, but I didn't really like the more upbeat tracks off of her debut album and honestly just in her discography. But I lived for the dark tracks. I love the dark tracks. Like for example, Fair by Normani. I know that a lot of people just like moved past that. She did. In our defense, she acted like that song did not exist. I love that song. So I partially agree with this because I think when Black artists get into that dance vibe, they kill it. Like look at Kelly Rowland when she did the whole EDM stint. That was unexpected, but worked very well. So I think that we already do have artists like Tinashe who's taking it there. You may scoff at this, but Justine Skye, to me, lives better in this dance-oriented sound. Listen to her new song with Kaytranada. And also Jay Steffens, if you haven't heard of her, she's very good with like danceable pop R&B. Check out her new song, SMH. It's been on repeat, summer song for sure. But I feel like we already have people doing that. They just need more attention versus trying to fit these mainstream artists into a box that maybe they don't want to be in. This opinion says if Zayn took his career seriously, he could have, would have, and should have been the biggest star coming out of One Direction. Yes, he needs to take his career more seriously, but even if he did, in any life, I think Harry was going to be that guy. But I do think that Zayn should have been bigger. I like his music a lot more. Even going back to his discography with his debut album, Mind of Mine, had some really great tracks. And I could be slightly biased because his sound is more R&B leaning. So that is more my speed. That is more up my alley. And I do like his vocal quality more than his bandmate. Like Pillow Talk alone was it for me. Like that was such a great debut single. However, I could see how his music may sound a bit repetitive if you only listen to a few tracks, but I felt like he was kind of carving his own lane. I do agree with this. I don't know if this is very unpopular, but it's not really talked about a lot. This opinion says the industry is really trying to make Benson Boone a thing when he's really just a one-hit wonder, and that's okay. So I can see why they would push Benson. Okay, because there aren't many men with major mainstream pull right now. The lane is open. So if you're his label, you're going to be like, let's get him here, 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 and here. But I do agree with the one-hit wonder part. Now, let's just make it very clear. He does have other songs and YouTube videos that have a lot of views. But the more that Benson kind of tries to cement himself, I just keep getting this future vision. Very That So Raven. I get this future vision of him one day just being a blip in time. Like when it's 2050, 2055, and we're 50 and 60, I feel like he'll just be one of those people where it's like, y'all remember back in the day where there was that guy who like flipped off of pianos and like made retail music like it sounded like a part of an Old Navy commercial? Yeah, I just don't see it being like a generational thing. But also, I feel like we're living in two different timelines. Because if you go under his little Beautiful Things video, people are sobbing over that. So I don't know. But I kind of agree with you. Besides, I also think he leans way too into that whole Freddie Mercury tease. Like, it's too much. Like, I think the performance aspect will get a little bit stale to people if he does not find some originality. Because at the AMAs, people were like, what's up with the flipping? Someone said, this is not a sustainable business model. And to be honest, I know it's kind of hypocritical because it's like, I thought y'all said you wanted men to perform, but you don't have to turn into an acrobat. You don't. Like every single performance. And then it also gives Freddie Mercury like, let's do something new, you know? Do I think some of the hate is because, yeah, he's become an internet meme and he's a bit of a punching bag? Absolutely. We know how the internet likes to pile on to people, but I do think that there are valid reasons why people really just don't care for his music or his gimmick. This next one I have been dying to talk about, and thank you to you for bringing this up because I don't know if I was ever going to have the guts to. This opinion says Eternal Sunshine has the least amount of replay value from Ariana's whole discography. I was thoroughly disappointed with that release. Maybe I'm missing something, but Ariana has lost the swag she used to have, and this album reflects it. I feel like it just falls in line with the rest of white girl pop nowadays. Ariana was absolutely amazing at reinventing herself and experimenting with different sounds for every album, but Eternal Sunshine feels so generic. I also feel like her voice lacks the warmth it used to have. Maybe it was all the operatic training for Wicked, but I compare her performances from like 2021 and now, and it just seems like something is off. Let's talk about it. You guys know that I reacted to Eternal Sunshine on my Patreon, the deluxe, and also on my channel. And now that I've had time to let it sit, I agree with this opinion. I agree with it. There's a lot to unpack. There is a smooth out texture to her voice now. And as crisp as it is, as much as she's approved on the enunciation, we've been asking her to do that for years. Okay, so good on her. But there is a lack of soul or vocal rawness in this album. Like the feeling, the passion. It almost vocally sounds too perfect. And I know you guys are going to say, wait, what? The girl who always is on camera saying no one has vocals anymore is now saying that someone's vocals are too perfect? Yes, I am. It sounds a bit quiet and muted. It feels safe. Okay, and going back to your swag comment, I remember when I reacted to the deluxe a couple months ago on my Patreon, I said this about the vocal soul, and I'm gonna play the clip so you guys know I have proof, I have evidence. With the clarity that she has in her voice, I think sometimes I like it when she's a little rough around those edges to kind of feel a bit more soulful. I would have loved that pulled out. It's like something about this album wasn't vocally connecting in the same way, despite her songwriting being some of the strongest she's ever done. And that's why as a fan, I was like torn, because I'm like, the songs are good, the melodies are good, but something about the voice feels a little empty. And we know her role with Wicked changed her persona. She really had to get into character, and also her vocal technique, her singing style really brought her back to these musical theater roots. Word to her clarity, enunciation, and vocal crispness, right? All great things. But I think her tone preference has even changed. And in a 2025 interview, she says that the role required a lot of vocal work for her. And as a result, Galinda's voice might stay. Unpopular opinion, keep the enunciation, but drop the Glinda voice. Like, get rid of it. I remember there was a clip from an interview from Ariana did back in the day, like 2013, her debut era, where she was talking to an interviewer and she recalls a old vocal coach wanting her to change the way she was singing. Cue the clip.
Hell no. I was like, I am not singing this. So she tried to change the way I was singing, and I didn't feel comfortable. She wanted me to sing in like this nice, pretty way. Just like super light and, you know, white, for lack of a better word. And I like singing with a little more soul. And I thought that she was trying to change me, and I didn't like that.
So before you guys say we're pulling this out of our ass, Ariana has said it herself to know exactly what we're talking about when we say that the soul aspect has dwindled. And then also, to be fair, to be very balanced here, you guys know I love Ariana Grande. Word to the poster in the back. But for some people, this is just another iteration coming into these R&B spaces. Again, she has had a lot of blackfishing allegations over the years. I personally feel like, though, she has shown a lot of respect to the great. She has done her homework, and she has shown a genuine appreciation for the music. But I can see how it looks a little odd. Yeah, for the role, you dye your hair blonde. You know, your skin is more pale. You stop tanning. That's what people wanted her to do. So she stopped doing that. And now the voice is a little... And I know the movie role, but I can see how some people feel like it seems all a bit disingenuous. But I do think that there's a rawness about R&B. I know she's not classified as an R&B artist, but if you know her discography back to front, you know what she's capable of. Eternal Sunshine, from a vocal point, lacked a bit in the soul department. It was less belty, and the word you used, a lack of warmth, is perfect. That was a great way to put it. I liked Eternal Sunshine for the songwriting. I liked some of the sonic themes. I liked the melodies. I liked some of the harmonies, but something was missing a little bit. Next, we are gonna get into the R&B category. You guys know I love R&B, so this is one of my favorites. I have two opinions that were somewhat similar, so we're going to tackle them today. One was, I think people have artists like Frank Ocean and Rihanna on such a high pedestal based on their amazing and hugely successful past albums, and built up so much anticipation that any new album release has a high likelihood of being disappointing. Totally agree with this. When you build something up so much, especially for Frank Ocean, I feel like Rihanna has been so visible for years that I give her some grace in this department. If she never releases an album again, she really doesn't have to. She doesn't have to. And I honestly think, this is my unpopular opinion, it may be in Rihanna's best interest to not. Like, just keep everybody waiting forever. That little troll song, I know it was a kid's movie, I get it, but the vocals, somebody said, y'all, I think Rihanna actually lost her voice. Like, I don't even think there's an album to make. But Frank Ocean, he could. The second one says, Blonde and Frank Ocean in general is extremely overrated, especially when it comes to R&B discussions. There's countless artists, even in his own era, that make much better R&B music and projects. And a lot of his fans tend to have a very limited intake of the genre. He's good, but nowhere near good enough to warrant the amount of praise he gets. Everybody be nice. I want you guys to be nice. Be nice to this person and be nice to me, because I agree with this. I agree with this. Y'all are gonna kill me. No, you're not, because it's just an opinion. I was never on the Frank Ocean train. Thinking About You, that's my shit. Pink and White, he has some really good songs. Do not get me wrong. This is not me saying that he sucks, okay? For my sensitives out there, I'm not saying he sucks. But his music for me, was a bit boring and sleepy to me. I just don't think his music resonated for me. And you made a great point. You made a very important distinction. I think it's in R&B discussions that it's a bit overstated. I think, to me, Frank Ocean transcends R&B a bit. So he has a big fan base, an R&B audience that intersects, okay? There's like two. There's the R&B fans, okay, that do listen to him, that consume him. And then the fans who like kind of like R&B, where Frank Ocean is like the closest or more adjacent that they get. Okay. And I think that that is where it kind of sways a bit for me and where it's a bit skewed. I will give him this. His vulnerability and emotion came at a time where it was needed, especially in R&B. And I think that's the attachment, his ability to capture emotion in a song and his way with words. Plus the nostalgia, he's very good at capturing that emotion. And for a lot of people who were in a coming of age stage or young adults consuming this at the time, his music helped like get people out of depression. His music was able to put feelings into words that people couldn't express. So I want to respect that. Okay, it just did not touch me in that way. Yes, he exists in this alt R&B space, and some people could even say he's a pioneer of that, and I wouldn't argue that. I saw someone say he's in the lineage of like Marvin Gaye and Stevie Wonder. And another comment that I saw in a music video when I was doing research, someone said, I'm so mad it's been 11 years and there still isn't someone that could even come close to Frank Ocean. I just think that's over dramatic. Like, I don't understand where that comes from. Now, I know that he produces, composes, songwrites. So in that case, if you're saying like a Stevie Wonder, like if you're saying from a musical standpoint, I can kind of see that. And if that's something you value, then you could absolutely like argue the genius of his work. He's one of those artists that like, if you say that you don't get it, oh, you're getting jumped.
Okay, don't worry.
Oh, you're getting jumped. So I'm kind of prepared to get some lashings, but clearly there was a lot of people who agreed with this comment. So maybe it's not as popular as we think. So this next opinion says that Ciara doesn't get the credit she deserves for carrying Janet's torch and also carving a lane of her own in Beyonce and Rihanna's world. The R&B pop girls love to skip over her until it's time to be inspired. I do kind of agree with this. I think there's two ways I can go where I agree and I kind of disagree. So let's talk about it. You're right, because at a certain point, Rihanna and Beyonce, it was like all about them in the R&B space, like Rihanna, Beyonce. And I do think in a way some people like didn't maybe get the credit they deserve. Trust me, I've been a bit guilty of not really evaluating Ciara's overall impact in the grand scheme of things, and I could do a better job of that. Don't get it twisted though, I had the CDs when she came out and was a big Ciara fan as a kid. Someone like Rihanna, she had industry backing that took her to another stratosphere, and you could definitely argue that Ciara deserved that as well, especially with the dancing, the singing combo. And in interviews, when a lot of these R&B artists talk about who they love and are asked their inspo, Ciara, it seldom comes up. They do skip over my girl. They do skip over her. And if anything, they jump to Aaliyah. When, depending on their age, when they grew up, when they were born, right, and what they consumed growing up, it's more likely to be Ciara. But you could argue that a lot of Ciara's inspiration and aesthetic visually kind of came from Aaliyah. Or Janet, even further back. And that's where it gets kind of slippery, where you probably could give her more credit. However, I wouldn't say, I know you didn't use the word underrated, but I wouldn't say that like she doesn't get credit or that she's underrated in a way, because she has hit. She's charted extremely well over the years, over the span of the years, not just the early 2000s, but even when she came back with Level Up in 2018, that comeback single charted very well. She got a lot of buzz for that. Hot take, I also just don't think that Ciara changed R&B and pop's musical landscape that much.
Everybody else is
Are you deluded?
To get the kind of credit you guys may be looking for. Okay, unless if you consider like Crunk and B to be a large part of the R&B revolution, sonically, I do think that she gets a lot of the credit that she deserves. I really do. But absolutely though, give her all of the flowers for her visuals and performance skills, because her music videos are kind of classics at this point, and I think more people could do that. So I decided to hit y'all with my own unpopular opinion because I was just thinking about this. But stop always including SZA in R&B award categories. I don't know if this is unpopular. Rather, maybe this is something that people just don't care about. But I think it's going to stifle the recognition of dedicated R&B artists. And by dedicated, I mean R&B artists who really are committed. Like, that's what they do. For instance, the whole thing that sparked this to me was at the AMAs this year is Saturn being in the R&B category, nominated for Best R&B Song. First, in what world is Saturn an R&B song? Can we talk about that? Huh? I mean, I guess in some worlds, but I guess if somebody else made that'd be pop. Yes, her music is very R&B based. Do not get me wrong. There's not a dig to the R&B, but she does rock, she does R&B, she does pop. She does all of it. And she also has the fan base and music to carry in the pop categories. Now, I know that award is fan voted, but somebody had to create the categories in the first place, okay? Okay. I was cool with her being best R&B artist, but that song specifically made no sense to me. To make a point, I saw someone post the best R&B artist winners, AMA winners, over like the last 10 years. Was always between Rihanna and Beyonce, Rihanna and Beyonce, Rihanna and Beyonce. Obviously, their fans were voting. And then it was like Doja Cat for 2 years, which Doja Cat to me is not even R&B for real, but that's besides the point. And then SZA is now starting to sweep these R&B categories in various award shows, and that's great. I'm happy for her. But I also think that SZA transcends that, and I don't say transcends in an elitist way. I love R&B, but I feel like it contributes to other true or more fundamentally R&B artists being overlooked and not getting their flowers, when she really could, and her music could classify her to compete in pop categories, because it's like monopolized. And this is not a new thing. We just talked about the whole Rihanna, Beyonce. Because to me, after a while, Rihanna didn't really need to be in the R&B category, if I'm being honest. Like, there were tons of new girls coming out, and you're telling me none of them had a chance. This kind of brings us to our next opinion. It says Kesha Cole deserves more recognition. She stood out in the early 2000s with many hits, especially on her first album, and the fact that she has never won an award is beyond me. So Kesha Cole has won some awards, but I do agree with this. Because to be honest, when you said that, I decided to look up some of the awards she's won or didn't win or what she was nominated in. And she's been nominated over the years for Grammy Awards, BET Awards, NAACP Awards, AMAs, and she ain't ever won at a major award show. Never. So you are correct in that. And I was actually very surprised, very floored. And that kind of goes back to what I was saying about when Beyonce and Rihanna could monopolize every R&B category because the gatekeeper said so. Even though after a certain point, they were no longer really solely R&B. And then you have artists like Kesha Cole, and you got artists like Ciara, you got all these other artists who are like Fantasia making these R&B records, and they're not getting the recognition for it because y'all just cannot let it go. So I do agree, that whole concept plagued her getting her flowers. I feel like the culture respects Kesha Cole's contributions, because if Love comes on, everybody's singing. But I don't think the industry does. You know what I mean? And I don't think she's been respected enough for her vocals, songwriting, and the emotional weight that her records genuinely carry. And that's someone who has been left out of the convo to me in the grand scheme. And I will say, Kesha has always been a bit rough around the edges. Okay?
Things I've been through in life, I can't be a star. I'm a survivor, for real.
But also, Rihanna has not been the most squeaky clean, definitely in her Twitter era, but that's besides the point. And from an industry standpoint, that can be hard to rein in. So maybe there was stuff behind the scenes that prevented that. I don't know. But she, we talked about the Ciara or Kesha Cole, she's one of those people to me that Kesha, I think, is more kind of left behind, but I could be wrong. All right, so last for the R&B category, we have Luther is not a very good song. I disagree. I love the song. I think the sample is what hooks me and is so refreshing. As a Luther Vandross enthusiast, I don't think he already gets enough recognition for his contributions. So I think this was a beautiful way to tribute him. The song If This World Were Mine, which is Luther Vandross and Cheryl Lynn duet, which is actually a song that I believe Marvin Gaye and Tammy Terrell cut originally. So there's layers to this, but that song specifically like just holds a special place in my heart. So I loved how they utilized it. I love the way they utilized the sample. By adding the actual vocal recording into the song and centering the song around it versus it feeling random or pointless. Like it's literally a fabric of the song. It's just not some redundant sample. So I think they did something very special there. This is one song that I'm glad is at the top of the charts and is getting the recognition that it deserves. And then we're gonna tackle the rap category. I have one on here that I wanted to talk about, but this person said, I think that hip hop's and a certain corner of R&B's growing alliance with live streamers, Kai Cenat, DDG, etc., is weakening the seriousness of the genre. Other genres are guilty of this, of course, and it's understandable because you want to target that really young online demographic. But the trends I find a lot of artists within the hip-hop genre are catering to makes hip-hop less about longevity and staying power and more about quickly trying to chase the bag, which is making a lot of mainstream hip-hop music and some R&B parentheses sound more shallow and devoid of substance. Snaps pointed this out so eloquently because I've noticed this silently, like, oh, more streamers are like making, beats and things and making songs on stream. And I'm like, I don't know how I feel about this. It can contribute to the unseriousness. Like, hip hop has already been struggling a bit. R&B in a way has been, but I agree it's more of a hip hop thing right now. It's been a debate because people have argued that they do like the transparency of like being able to see the music making process on stream. I'm specifically talking about right now the streamers who like make the music on live stream. And I do think that there's value in that. I don't want to be like I'm trying not to be like a grandma and be like, oh, all of this is bad, okay? I do think that there's value in that, I'm sure, right? The music industry is always changing. I think it can be cool to see a creative process happening live. And it can be inspirational for maybe kids and people who want to get into music. It could be more of a positive iteration of streaming. But I agree that streaming in itself is often about short-term gratification. It's sporadic and getting a bag quick. And it can change the source or inspo of the music, especially when you have chat comments clouding judgment and possibly creating a distraction in real time. It maybe can start catering way too much into audience validation. I often feel like the artistic process can be very sacred, depending on who the artist is, and I don't want it to become like an expectation or a need where people feel like to get views, I gotta go on stream and make this beat with Plackboy Max. I need to get on stream and make this with da-da-da-da, or I need to preview music on here, or I need to sit down and go on stream to promote this. I don't want people to feel like they have to if they don't want to, right? For example, Queen Naija, a couple months ago, I saw clips of her on a DDG stream. And she looked a bit uncomfortable. And I think in a later interview, she did say there was just a lot of people in the room and she's not used to recording with that many people. And I know it's a stream, so they let people in and out. But as an artist, if you don't want all those people in the room, they don't have to be. And then we're doing it live. It just feels like don't force yourself to do it. And I do think it makes it a little less intimate and sacred and really lets you get out the kinks. Because now the internet is so ruthless, guys. Like, you'll do one thing and everybody runs with it. So I think it does create an ability to be very self-conscious even when creating the music, but it can go both ways. Maybe you create some heat and it just goes crazy. I don't know. But also I think artist allegiance with streamers, period, is interesting. Drake making, streamers his mouthpiece.
But I never heard Drake's song. Kendrick Lamar came out. Crowd was making no noise.
The allegiance with streamers who are misogynistic and anti-black. Aiden Ross, I'm talking about you. Very specifically, like people who aren't in the culture, who some of these rappers are letting take up space is really gross to me. But I could argue it's not good for the music nor the culture. But rappers have been mixing with odd crowds since God knows when. So is this really new? It's really just an evolution. but not too much is sacred about the creative process anymore. So I think that streaming does contribute to that. That was a very long-winded response because it's nuanced, it's layered, but I totally agree with this comment. And I think we need to wake this up. We need to wake it up. All right, so we're gonna go into music trends. This one says that the industry shifting focus and prioritizing performers over vocalists is the reason for the lip sync and bad vocals epidemic. That demand for a great performer allows for untrained artists in the vocal department. Yeah, so I would agree. I agree with this. I think it really depends on the lens, like what market you're looking at, and also what time period you're looking at. So if you're looking at, let's say, the Western market versus, let's say, like K-pop. I did a video on Cat's Eye recently and we had the K-pop conversation and I had a lot of insight. A lot of you guys were very helpful in the comments in outlining this for me. But K-pop, they focus a lot more on the performance to where the vocals are lacking. And a lot of people were expressing that. So I think that opinion makes a lot of sense. However, in the Western artists, I don't even think they push in performance like that either. Like, I honestly think that like it's just kind of like the package is lacking, like kind of period, a little bit. There's of course some artists that are like doing great. I think there's a lot of R&B artists that are still like trying to like really bring that vocal prowess, but in pop stars, not really. But has that ever been a huge expectation with pop stars? That's a little bit debatable. But if we are referencing the late 90s, early 2000s, yeah, like you could even sit there and say like Britney Spears. Some people don't like Britney Spears because they feel like she was like the impetus for bringing in the new millennium of like performing first, voice, performing first, right? So I agree with that. But right now, I don't even really think that the industry is prioritizing performers either, though. I don't know if they are. I agree with you that vocals is at a dead last currently on the artist checklist, 100%. But even the small group or small folks of people putting on a show like dancing, high production, and kind of being able to sing, I still don't think some of them get enough credit either. Because I love a performer. I think if you're not going to have the vocals, at least be able to perform. If anything, now I feel like it's more about the vibes. It's more of a battle between the industry pushing mediocre vocalists than it is against the performance being pushed, right? Because right now, I don't even think we're getting both. This person said music isn't worse. You just don't listen to anything outside of your algorithm. I agree with this, but I don't. It's semantics, and I'll tell you why. So I think people use and say the whole music sucks now or music is worse now comment because they're referring to the overall standards and ethos of music, front-facing, mainstream. Like, let's say maybe there was more of an expectation for live instrumentation, more complex arrangements, longer songs, higher vocal quality, more attention to craft. Mind you, music is subjective, so this will always be a toss-up. It's hard to measure it, but gatekeepers in the industry maintain and expected a standard. 100%. There was less people allowed through the door. And of course, on a realistic level, yes, you can discover anything now. So like numerically speaking and chance-wise, it probably can't be worse because there's just so many more people to listen to. It's infinite now, which can also be very overwhelming. And we have to be honest, everybody does not have the time nor desire to sift through hundreds and thousands of artists to find the right one. It's 24 hours in a day. So yes, like you could say go on Spotify and like look, but the algorithm runs people's lives. It's hard to escape it, right? And it takes a lot of effort. So when the mainstream is kind of pushing the same thing over and over, when there's proof that back in the day there was more eclectic artists being pushed in the mainstream, more talented artists pushed in the mainstream as far as a craft standpoint, I don't really think that's that arguable. The mainstream music quality and what's being pushed on the radio has seemed to become more watered down, copy and paste and basic. We as consumers do hold more of that power, right? Because somebody then goes on, another opinion says that true music appreciation is genuinely dead. Everyone's too concerned about charts, numbers, sales, etc. Music individualism is dying due to the general public only being fed what is popping instead of taking the time to dive into different sounds and genres that might not be mainstream. But I see what you're saying though, because music maybe wouldn't be worse as a whole if people really took their time to support and push smaller artists who pay much more attention to the quality of their music. But to be mainstream, I feel like you either had to be raising the bar. I'm talking, guys, I'm even thinking back as far as like the 60s, the 70s, maybe even the 80s. The 80s started to kind of get a little, or you had to be doing something different or eye-catching. or matching that energy. And I think we've hit a bit of a wall with that. Maybe we're saying this too and idealize previous music because the artists that we're referencing are the ones who survived the test of time, whose names are in the history book. Right? When we talk about Prince, Michael Jackson, Stevie Wonder, Marvin Gaye, like there were so many other artists out that aren't them. That like honestly were still making good music, but they just didn't, stand the test of history. So we might idealize that as well. There's a lot of one-hit wonders. There's a lot of probably music that came and gone. So we all can't say that super confidently if we weren't there. But I kind of do feel like music is, just to use your phrasing, I do think it is kind of worse, just overall. But as somebody who grew up in this generation, I still like a lot of the music though, even the stuff that other people might consider like not that great. This one says, unpopular opinion, an artist should have at least one live performance where they sing their song in the original key, exactly like the studio to show off their talent. I know this is a harsh opinion because it's not realistic, but all I gotta say is yes. These folks will get up here and find 99 ways to sing the song live out of the original key. Why didn't you just record it like that then? Honestly, half of these people be shower singers. You can't sing that? Anyways, and no, I'm not speaking on having to sustain your voice for an entire tour, so you change some of the higher notes or keys to preserve, right? Like that, I totally get it. Sometimes live, I'm like, you know what? Especially if I see a vocalist, I'm not always expecting you to do that note. I get it, but not once. Sometimes not once. We're not hearing it how it was recorded. It don't sound nothing like that. But also, should we give people points for just singing live in the first place? Because nowadays, a lot of people lip sync. Some of my younger faves give even better live performances than the studio. Ariana Grande sounds great live, like almost always. Kehlani sounds great live. Saw her a few times and I was floored. Kiana Lede is another one who sounds very good live, like the track. But why do you think no one does live albums anymore? Like actually takes the audio from the tour. Because only very few are good enough to to sing their song live and also elevate it. So I agree with this. It's never gonna happen because you can't regulate that, but just give us the key one. And then lastly, I want to talk about this. Someone said, everyone is doing the Mount Rushmores wrong. It represents founding fathers. So for those of you guys who don't know, there was a trend going around called the Mount Rushmore of. So you could take different genres. So the Mount Rushmore of pop music, the Mount Rushmore of female R&B, Mount Rushmore of hip hop. And one of the more popular ones recently that were going around was the Mount Rushmore of male R&B. And I agree with this 100%. I was seeing all of these Mount Rushmores, some of them AI generated, and y'all was just picking your favorites or who are the most popular per se. And I do think a lot of history is yet to be written, but I think some of you guys have recency bias or you don't know. When Mount Rushmore is founding fathers, not like who sold the most records? You know what I mean? Like,
who was the most recent? Who did I grow up on?
No. So like, how are you gonna do a male R&B Mount Rushmore and put Michael Jackson, which he could go on there, but I think like pop too. You put Michael Jackson, Neo, Usher, and Chris Brown on the same one. What are we doing? Please be serious. Like, we're just gonna skip over Marvin Gaye, Al Green, Sam Cooke, Stevie Wonder, Luther Vandross, Teddy Pendergrass. Like we're just gonna skip over that. Cause I was seeing videos of people talking about Neo. Oh, sorry, I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but like that's not founding father. Now, if you're doing like pyramid, like who's your favorite or who do you think are some of the better ones? I don't know. I just feel like for founding fathers I feel like that's implied. I don't know if y'all don't know your monuments. But I feel like it's kind of implied, like who are the people in all of these categories that like if their music did not exist, we probably wouldn't have gotten an Usher. We probably wouldn't have gotten a Chris Brown, right? We wouldn't have gotten a Neo. I feel like that's more of the criteria here. And I understand some people do not have the exposure and that's like why people are just pulling people out there. But we don't always have to speak about things we don't know about. It's definitely debatable. It's never like set in stone, but let's at least make informed, like educated placements at the very least. That was me reacting to your guys' unpopular, unhinged music opinions. So thank you guys so much for watching. Please comment down below. What was the most egregious as in like bad opinion that I talked about today, and which one did you agree with? Add yours down below. I'm gonna go through the comments and read them. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hit that subscribe button down below, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.